We're at that order of business of bills on third reading and final passage. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move bills on third reading consent list consisting of Senate File 8, Senate File 11, Senate File 31, and Senate File 51.
Would anyone like any of these bills off the consent list? Will the reading clerk read the bills on the consent list?
Senate File 8, sponsored by Senator Baldwin, Essential Subsidy Payments to Behavioral Health Centers, an act relating to public health and safety being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 11, sponsored by Labor, Cancer Early Detection Amendments, an act relating to public health and safety being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 31, sponsored by Judiciary, Adjacent Land Resource Data Trespass Repeal, an act relating to crimes and offenses being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 51, sponsored by Education, School Finance Regional Cost Adjustment, an act relating to school finance being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Having been read three separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the House? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stiff? Storer? Strzok? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwaniter Dan? Zwaniter Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Oh, Nicholas? Excused to aye. Further changes? Bear? Closing vote? Vote closed. 56 aye, 6 excused. As for Senate File 8, are there any changes? Hornock, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Slagle, aye to, oh, excuse me, 1 second. Slagle, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Winter, aye to no. Jennings, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 48 aye, 8 no, 6 excused. As for Senate File 11, are there any changes? Ward, aye to no. Walters, excused to I. Locke, I to no.
Chief,
Henderson, I. Larson Lloyd, I. Sherwood, I. Storer, I. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 2 no, 1 excused. As for Senate File 31, are there any changes? Warnock, aye to no. Davis, aye to no. Penn, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Slagle, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Strock, aye to no. Ward, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Banks, aye to no. Pendergraft, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Walters, excused to aye. Winter, aye to no. Jennings, aye to no. Heiner, aye to no. Angelos, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Henderson, excused to aye. Trujillo, aye to no. Storer, excused to aye. Sherwood, excused to aye. Larson Lloyd, excused to aye. Nyman, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 40 aye, 21 no, 1 excused. As for Senate File 51, are there any changes? Bear, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Penn, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Slagle, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Winter, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Jennings, aye to no. Heiner, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Pendergraft, aye to no. Walters, excused to aye. Henderson, excused to aye. Strock, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Larson Lloyd, excused to aye. Nyman, aye to no. Brown, aye to no. Sherwood, excused to aye. Storer, excused to aye. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 45 aye, 16 no, 1 excused.
having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate Files 8, 11, 31, and 51 have passed the House. We're at that order of business of bills on third reading regular list. And the first bill for our consideration is Senate File 9.
Senate File 9, sponsored by Senator Baldwin. Medicaid coverage, licensed pharmacists. An act relating to the Medical Assistance and Service Act, be it enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Representative Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 9. Ask for your favorable consideration for day 3 of this lovely debate. So you'll remember from yesterday how we divided the amendment, moved the pharmacist abortion language into a different part of statute, but based on that division, left it in 2 places in the statute. What this amendment does is merely take it out of where we put it in the standing committee amendment. It doesn't touch our second reading amendment yesterday where we moved that language in Title 42. So hopefully this cleans up the bill and we can all agree on it. Would ask for your favorable aye vote.
Anybody else sensing your urge to vote? All those in favor of third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 9 signify by saying aye. Opposed? Third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 9 has been adopted. Senate File 9, having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman excused. Heiner? Henderson? Warnock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrop? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez-Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stiff? Storer? Strzok? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washit? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers?
Aye.
Are there any changes? Larson Lloyd, no to aye. Allemand, aye to no. Davis, aye to no. Angelos, aye to no. Walters, no to aye. Walters, no. Conrad, aye to no. Larson JT, no to aye. Zwanitzer Dan, no to aye. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 31 aye, 30 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 9, having failed to receive the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate File 9 has failed to pass the House. The next
31.
takes 32 to pass the bill. Failed. Yes, privilege.
Yes, please, Mr. Speaker, if I get a privilege. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 3 of our Student Government Association members from our Laramie County Community College here in the balcony. If they would stand up and be recognized. The Student Government President is Rafe Tolman, Vice President Lily McNally, and one of our Senators, Dominic Cruz, is joining us with their advisor, Carol Bowden.
Hey! Byron, right? Representative Byron, privilege?
Please, Speaker.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you. If everyone would give a warm welcome to one of my constituents, also a school board member up in Teton County, and another member of the school district behind everyone, Bill Scarlett and Charlotte Reynolds. Please stand up. Give them a good house welcome.
I don't know if anyone recognized Joe Schaefer up there, the president of Laramie County Community College. If not, I'd like him to stand up, be recognized. Joe is a tireless worker for a lot of issues and does a lot of really good work for the state of Wyoming, and we appreciate him. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 68.
Senate File 68, sponsored by Select Water. Prescriptive easement for water conveyances. An act relating to prescriptive easements being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Representative Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 68, and we'll explain it. So when an irrigation district or an irrigation company comes into a ditch and starts looking at tearing it apart, you'll see that the first thing that I'm asking is to move that time that they are coming to you and asking about it, to do that to 72 hours. I think 3 days is a better number to have that out there instead of 2-day notice, partially because of the second part, because what I'm asking in there is that if you're going to tear apart a fence, for example, and I have cattle on that chunk of land, I certainly don't want to get caught down here and have them tearing apart a fence. So I'd like to have some more time to be able to arrange for either the cattle to be moved or the fence to be fixed. And that can be at any time, not just when I'm in session, or any time at all. Any of you that have cattle, it could be sheep, it could be horses. If an irrigation district or company decides to come in and do that, you just need to be told when and where, and then work with that landowner to come back and fix that fence, and that's the amendment. I'll stand for questions.
Anybody want to talk to this amendment? Representative, nope, just went by. All right, all those in favor of third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 68 signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 68 has been adopted. Next amendment is Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 68. Ask for your favorable consideration. And while I admit to you, I can't figure out what this bill does or why it's needed, I do know that we haven't used the word hostile in water law since 1939, because I went and looked. And so what the bill originally started out with had the word adverse. There on page 2, line 8, it was changed by our good colleagues down the hall to hostile, and you'll see there on lines 11 and 12. I also don't understand why we consider an action hostile or adverse if you meet Romanets 1 and 2. Regardless of why I can't figure out what we're doing here, I at least know that hostility implies to real property and land law, but it certainly does not apply to water law. I would ask the members of the House to put the change back to the word adverse, because that at least fits within our other statutes and our existing water law.
Representative Davis for your first time.
To the good representative that's bringing the amendment, Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
to the good representative that brought the amendment, have you irrigated? If not, you would understand the difference between hostile and other styles. So I think hostile is the proper word in there. Thank you.
A little ditch humor here today. Representative Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So on and for the amendment, the reason the amendment's proper is the two different words have different meanings in different areas of the law. So as the bringer of the amendment suggested, hostile actually applies to adverse possession. And so I assume when the bill got drafted, they actually used the word that's used in the amendment for a reason, because that applies to easements, which is what we're dealing with in this particular bill. We're not actually doing adverse possession. And so hostile is a word that applies to adverse possession, not to prescriptive easements. So we just need to make sure we get that word right. And so I'd ask you to vote for the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Anybody else? Sensing your urge to vote, all those in favor of third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 68 signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 68 has been adopted. Representative Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment number 3 to Senate File 68 and ask for your favorable consideration. So as I read this bill, I see lots of issues, and I think we've covered a couple of them. We're not going to get to all of them today, but I do see some issues within the bill. And so I'm bringing an amendment to try to fix one of those issues. And so what this particular amendment does is on page 2, at the top there where it says continuous and uninterrupted, we're adding a clause after that. It says consistent with the historical and traditional use by the water user of the water conveyance system, a temporary change of use under the statute or a cessation of use so long as the water rights are not abandoned shall not be deemed an interruption under this paragraph. The point of the amendment is, under current law in Wyoming, if, for example, you don't use your ditch for 6 months, that doesn't affect your right? We don't irrigate year-round. And so I'm trying to cover the argument that someone else is going to make, the person who is not a water user, right, who has the ditch running across their property. They're not an irrigator, but the ditch runs through them. And the first thing they're going to say when we pass this bill is, well, it wasn't uninterrupted. You didn't use the ditch, but for 3 months or 4 months out of the year. And so I'm just trying to make it clear that we're doing this consistent with water law. And so if this bill does pass, I don't want to create more harm than we're solving. And so I'd ask for an aye vote on the amendment.
Representative Nyman for your first time.
Good amendment. Appreciate the good bringer bringing some clarity. I would just appreciate your aye vote on this amendment as well. It's a good amendment.
Anybody else? Anybody for the second time? Sensing your urge to vote, all those in favor of third reading amendment number 3 to Senate File 68 signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Third reading amendment number 3 to Senate File 68 has been adopted. Senate File 68 having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemande. Allred. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Berger. Brown. Burkhart. Byron. Chadwick. Chestick. Clauston. Conrad. Craigo. Davis. Eklund. Haroldson. Harshman, excused. Heiner. Henderson. Warnock. Jennings. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Locke. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Nemec. Northrup. Oakley. Obermuller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Pendergraft. Penn. Provenza. Rodriguez-Williams. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stith. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Trujillo. Walters. Ward. Washut. Western. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Zwanitzer Dan. Zwanitzer Dave. Speaker Summers. Are there any changes? Any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 52 aye, 10 no, 1 excused. Oh,
Are we good? Okay. All right.
51 aye, 10 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 68, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate File 68 has passed the House. Next bill for our consideration is Senate File 25.
Senate File 25, sponsored by Judiciary, District and Prosecuting Attorneys, Bar License Requirement, an act relating to district and county and prosecuting attorneys being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Representative Hornock.
Mr. Speaker, I bring you third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 25, and I will withdraw at the proper time. So members, I just wanted to open this back up and talk about it a little bit so that we understand what this bill does and what we're doing with this bill. First of all, as I'm talking, you can get on your computer and you can go to a website and you can probably, in the time that we're going to discuss this, file a complaint against an attorney. So it's fairly easy to do. There's a form, there's a place you can go, you can file that complaint, add the proper information, you can do that. And that form goes to the Bar Council, then they follow up with that complaint and work that out. We're talking here about district attorneys and prosecuting attorneys. Those are tough jobs. I don't know that any of the attorneys in the room are volunteering to take on this responsibility. These are tough jobs. And so with that tough job, they're very critical as well, because these are the people that prosecute the crimes, that actually go, in a certain extent, they go to making our cities and our towns and our counties safe. They take criminals off the street and they prosecute those crimes that are committed in our localities. And so it's a very critical part of our system, these particular people. And so somebody that walks out of a courtroom after these prosecuting attorneys and these district attorneys have done their job, somebody will always walk out of those courtrooms angry. There's always two sides to the coin, and somebody's going to not like the outcome of what's going on here. And so currently our district attorneys are accountable to our voters. Our prosecuting attorneys, I believe, are appointed positions, so they're kind of accountable in that way as well. What I'm asking here is that we give them a little bit of a longer leash. And I think that's really important in the type of job that they are undertaking with their responsibility. These positions are in the news all the time because crime happens all the time. And so there's an article in the paper actually today in our local paper that talks about this position, the district attorney, and it talks about this. Crime happens on our streets all the time, and these guys are the ones that prosecute those crimes. And so they prosecute things from speeding tickets to the worst murders. They prosecute people that are the worst offending felons, repeat felons, to white-collar criminal or white-collar crimes, the elites of our society. They're the people that have to stick their neck on the line and determine whether or not to prosecute, what charges to bring, and what to do with these people, and essentially take them through the court system if they decide to do that. worst case scenario, I think, if we're enacting this type of a law where they're, during their tenure in their office, they're scared of a complaint that any of you could be lodging right now on your computer against them. If they're scared of those complaints happening, then I'm afraid that they're not going to want to do their job to the best of their ability. In order to do these jobs, you have to care about it. You have to want to serve. And these are very important jobs to our community. So I think it's very important for us to have a little bit of, like I said, give them a little bit of a longer leash in order to do their job, so that they're not always going to be intimidated by somebody filing a complaint that could cause them to lose their bar license down the road or during their tenure, that essentially strips them of their livelihood. So if that system is allowed to be put in place through this law, I think it's going to hurt our justice system here in the state of Wyoming, because those people are going to, they could be intimidated, they could decide not to press charges, they could decide things based on that level of intimidation. So I just want to be pretty clear about the possible ramifications that we're up against when it comes to enacting a law like this. I think our system right now, the law that's in place where they have to be in good standing when they're elected, when they're appointed, I think that works. And then we leave it up to the voters during that time, because I'll tell you, if they do something wrong, like I said, they're in the paper all the time. They do something we disagree with, they're probably not going to get reelected. They're probably not going to be appointed again. So I think we need to leave it at that, leave it where it is. And so I ask for your no vote on this bill, and I'll stand for questions.
Representative Provenza for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So let's walk through the process, because I think the description that the good representative from this part of the state just said was complaints, as if frivolous complaints can come forward and people can just be disbarred. That is not true. Likely, if you are disbarred, completely disbarred, you probably committed a crime. So I don't know that you are the person who should uphold justice after you potentially committed a crime. As a prosecutor, as somebody who's supposed to uphold the law, and not only that, maybe you commit a crime, you get a complaint filed, it goes to the bar. What does that look like? Due process. There is a due process involved in removing somebody's licensure. They have to go in front of a court. Today, there was a release from the Supreme Court for censuring an attorney for bad conduct. And they were just censured. They didn't have, they weren't completely disbarred. There's a process, is all I'm saying. It's not as simple as that. It's not frivolous. And when we talk about upholding the law and the integrity of the justice system, I don't think somebody who's likely committed a crime, who then has lost their ability to practice law, is upholding the integrity of our justice system. And the article that was referenced today from the paper, the title ends with that this woman was arrested on first-degree murder, and under the previous district attorney was not charged. And if you know any information about that circumstance, I won't get into here, but there are questions about that and the process of the bar. This isn't filing a complaint willy-nilly and getting on with my day and somebody loses their job that they were elected to do. This is somebody didn't uphold their oath of office. No on the amendment, aye on the bill.
Representative Oakley for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I probably noticeably haven't spoken on this yet, and I think largely because I think everybody genuinely understands this and we can just go to a vote. But, I wasn't even sure where to start, to be honest. But I guess I appreciate the bringer of the amendment, especially just the impassioned sort of colloquy he just gave on prosecution and what a difficult job that is. I just got a shout out on the mic. That's good. But then he's just talked about but not wanting the system that this law would put in place, and that we need to be clear about the ramifications. And I would agree with that, and wholeheartedly disagree with the sort of conclusions he's drawing about what this could do. And so he's kind of saying if there's any nebulous allegation made against lawyers, that's something we deal with. We have a robust system. That is not what we deal with. It is true that anybody can throw complaints, and that happens quite frequently. But the idea that randomly lawyers are being in front of the board to get disbarred is just not how it goes. And so with that, and then finally, just for you to understand, I don't really think this is a situation we're going to face very often. So again, we've probably spent too much time on this. But I would also like to say what you might be looking at if your district attorney was not a licensed lawyer. Their whole job is to make legal decisions and give legal advice, which they probably are doing 10, 15 times a day. They wouldn't be able to do that. They wouldn't legally be able to do that. They wouldn't, the agencies and the people that are relying on them for the advice they're given, they wouldn't have attorney-client privilege. They wouldn't probably be able to rely on the advice. So there's 1,000 different angles there. If you're talking prosecution, they would be making charging decisions, which of course they need to know the current state of law. And then of course they have to go to court to actually try that case, which they wouldn't be allowed to do. So it would be a real disservice in the case that you did have a disbarred lawyer, should that happen, because they would be wholly unable to do the job. So enough of that. Vote aye on the bill.
Representative Brown for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to draw attention to not the red language in the bill, but the black language of the bill. Black language of the bill on lines 1 through 4 says each district attorney shall have been a licensed attorney for at least 4 years and a member in good standing of the Wyoming State Bar immediately prior to his election. All we're trying to say is that hopefully you stay in good standing with the bar the entire time you're in office. I don't know why we would have a qualification that if you're in good standing and then the day after election you're charged with whatever crime and you're no longer in there, that we wouldn't want to have that looked at. I don't understand the consternation, really, to be honest with you, about what we're doing is saying that you just have to be in good standing with the body of law that has precedence over whether or not you continue to practice law in the state of Wyoming. That's all we're saying, is that you just have to stay in good standing. You already had to be in good standing prior to being elected and running for the office. Now, while you're in office, just do your job and don't break the law. You should be just fine.
Representative Crago for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against amendment for the bill, and I would keep it simple. If you have a doctor doing a brain surgery on you, do you want one that has his license or one that doesn't? I would say the same's true for those attorneys that uphold our law. We want those that have got their license in good standing with the bar. They should be the ones upholding our law. On and against amendment for the bill, please vote aye.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their first time, second time before the sponsor? Representative Hornock for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, I do give a shout out to those prosecuting attorneys, and if that allows me to put a little mark on our bingo tag for doing so, hey, great. I think we're a little bit behind, so we need to get on the ball with that one anyway. But I just think that there is the possibility here that we're going to open the door to the potential fraud, to intimidation, to dereliction, to those kind of aspects of these people that are serving in this capacity for us. And it is an important job because these guys are the people that decide whether or not to prosecute crimes. And so I do ask for your no vote on the bill, and I withdraw the amendment this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 25 has been withdrawn. Senate File 25 having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Excused?
Excused.
Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washit? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwaniter Dan? Zwaniter Dave? Speaker Summers?
Aye.
Harshman? Are there any changes? Andrew? No, aye to no. Tarver? Locke? Aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 48 aye, 14 no.
Senate File 25, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate File 25 has passed the House. Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Rule 12-11, having voted on the prevailing side of Senate File number 9, I move to reconsider the third reading vote on Senate File number 9.
All right, so we've been through this a couple of times. So the first vote, what was the bill number again? 9. Got it. So the first vote will be on whether we want to reconsider the vote, and then the second vote will be on the question itself. So first vote is whether we want to reconsider. Senate File 9 failed. So having said that, Chief Clerk, please call the roll on the reconsideration of Senate File 9.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washit? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers?
Aye.
Are there any changes? Stith? Are there any changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 35 aye, 27 no.
The reconsider vote on Senate File 9 has passed. And so we are now on the main question of whether Senate File 9 should pass the House or not pass the House. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washit? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers?
Aye.
Are there any changes? Chadwick? No to aye. Further changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 35 aye, 27 no.
Senate File 9, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate File 9 has passed the House. Representative Brown, do you have a privilege?
Privilege of the floor, Mr. Speaker.
Please.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like everybody to take a quick stretch, stand up, and welcome the 2023 class of Leadership Wyoming. They are here with their leader, their amazing leader, Mandy Fable, and I believe the head cat herder, Linda Walsh, is up here as well. But I'd just like everybody to say hey to them, and hey, still 2018's best class ever, just saying.
Welcome to the House Leadership Wyoming. It's a great program, I hear. My wife went through it. She thought it was absolutely amazing. So hope you enjoy it. Representative Berger, do you have a privilege?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor.
Please.
I do want to single one of these individuals out. He's from my hometown in Evanston, former athlete of mine. In fact, my own son grew up idolizing him, wore his number, his basketball number in high school, a basketball star. His dad is a great friend of mine and a coach as well. But Rocco O'Neill is back in Evanston, a Wyoming graduate. There he is. Give Rocco a big round of applause. Your coach is proud of you.
Representative Larson JT on a privilege, and then we're going to go to a real privilege here too.
Thank you,
Representative
Mr.
Larson,
Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
please.
Mr. Speaker, in our north gallery, I'd like Todd Redmond to stand. He is our former Rock Springs Chamber Board President and a member of Leadership Wyoming for this year. So just want to give a round of applause.
So it's with a great pleasure that I would like to introduce former Representative Rosie Berger to the mic. And if you'd like a privilege of the floor,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I have the privilege of the floor?
please.
Well, everyone has to turn over here this way. I said it over in the other chamber. They said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, they always just said, 'Stand up, Rosie.'" So Rosie Berger from Bighorn, Wyoming, House District 51. Truly a privilege to be here today and to represent Leadership Wyoming. Just a dynamite class, as they all are. As you know, they're always the best class ever. And I'm a graduate of 2002. And Leadership Wyoming was the stimulus, really, for me to run for office back in 2002. So I served 2003 and finished up in January of 2017. My last role was as majority leader, but more importantly, I had a role in the renovation of this Capitol. And I'm just so thrilled to see it alive and all of you here and warming it up and doing the work of the people. I also just want to thank you for your service and also to thank your families and your friends and your communities for the sacrifices that you all make, not only on the campaign trail, but while you're here and in the interim, and the difficult votes that you have to make. This is not an easy job. It's heavy lifting. And I want you to know that out there across Wyoming, we appreciate you. We all do have different views, but I ask you to devote your time to debating in a civil manner and knowing that when you leave Cheyenne on hopefully March 3rd, I'm certain that's what the city's asking for too, but that you will have gained so many new friends, not only here in this chamber, but down the hall in your legislative staff. And make certain to appreciate your staff, the session staff and the all year round staff, because they are the wind beneath our wings. We could not do our job without them. So again, I want to thank you all for allowing me to have privilege of the floor. I'm honored to be here. And Mr. Speaker, what an honor to see you up there at that front desk. Thank you.
It was a real pleasure to have served with Representative Berger, and She was one of those that would always go to the mic and remind us to drink water, take care of yourself, be good to yourself, be good to the people around you. It was a real treat. We are now at that order of business, I'm being told, that we're going to do joint conference committee reports. Right, let me get it out here. So this would be a conference committee report on House Bill 41. Chairman Brown, I believe. Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move message number 284 to House Bill 41. This is your Joint Conference Committee report number 1. And ladies and gentlemen, if you'll remember, this is the lightweight trailer bill. At the end of the day, we were able to clarify a couple of the amendments that were made on the other side. The House position, if you remember it, was a $500 fee. When it came back across from the other body, they had dropped it down to $200. There was a real serious battle over this, and I mean, it was tough stuff. So we ended up coming back to a consensus of $350 for a permanent registration fee. It was a tough battle, but your House committee members came back with a solid win, and I'd ask for an aye vote on concurrence.
Nobody wanting to talk to that? All right. So the question is, shall message number 284, which is the Joint Conference Committee on House Bill 41, shall it pass the House? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand. Allemand. Allred. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Berger. Brown. Burkhart. Byron. Chadwick. Chestick. Clauston. Conrad. Craigo. Davis. Eklund. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Henderson. Warnock. Jennings. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Locke. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Nemec. Northrup. Oakley. Oakley. Obermueller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Pendergraft. Penn. Provenza. Rodriguez-Williams. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stiff. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Trujillo. Walters. Ward. Washit. Western. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Zwaniter Dan. Zwaniter Dave. Speaker Summers. Are there any changes? Larson JT excused to aye. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 56 aye, 6 excused.
With your vote, Joint Conference Committee Report number 1 on House Bill 41 has been adopted. It's passed the House. We are now All right, the conferees appointed for the Joint Conference Committee number 1 on Senate File 48 will be Harshman Chair, Clouston, and Northrup. We had to redo this one, and I don't know why. We're at that order of business of request to concur with Senate amendments to House bills. The first message for our consideration is message number 316 on House Bill 5, Representative Olson, Chairman Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move message number 316 to House Bill 5, voter registry list, voter ID, and absentee ballots, and do ask for your aye vote. So what this is the adoption of the Senate put on a standing committee amendment, and it really comes down to some wordsmithing. The House had put on a standing committee amendment to this bill as well. And what we wanted to include in the information that is subject to disclosure and subject to a request was the registration status of absentee voters. And the Senate wordsmithed that language by taking out registration status and simply changing it to date of registration. The date of the date registration is exactly what you're looking for, the date they registered. So at the end of the day, it's just some wordsmithing, and it's probably easier to just go ahead and, even though I hate to give that win to those folks down the hall, the reality is the ball doesn't move one way or the other, so we ought to just adopt it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 5. A majority of the elected members is required. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clouston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp, excused. Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup, excused. Oakley? Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Excused. Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Bear? No to aye. Slagle? No to aye. Smith? No to aye. Yin? No to aye. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 55 aye and 7 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 5. The next message for our consideration is message number 321 on House Bill 15, Chairman Washut. So do we have a Vice Chair Rodriguez Williams? If not, I can lay it back. Chairman Brown, maybe you'd, no, okay. All right, I'll just lay this one back if nobody's going to move it right now. And we'll go on to the next one. So the next message for our consideration is message number 322 on House Bill number 57, Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move message number 322 to House Bill 57, and I would ask for an aye vote on concurrence. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, this was a good little cleanup amendment that was brought to me after we passed it out of this body, and all it really does is move the Army National Guard, the Air National Guard, and any reserve or auxiliary component thereof of any state to the definition of armed forces as opposed to uniformed services. This was the Space Force cleanup bill, if you will, where we added Space Force. We just had this put at the wrong line. The military department caught this for me, and we changed it over in committee, and that's pretty much all it is, Mr. Speaker. So I'd ask for an aye vote.
Okay, we are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 57. A majority of the elected members is required. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Ellement, Allred, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Berger, Brown, Burkhart, Byron, Chadwick, Chestick, Clauston excused, Conrad, Prego, Davis, Eklund, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Henderson, Warnock, Jennings, Knapp excused, Larson Lloyd excused, Larson JT, Lawley excused, Locke, Nyman, Newsom, Nicholas, Nemec, Northrup excused, Oakley excused, Obermuller, O'Hearn, Olson, Ottman, Pendergraft, Penn, Provenza excused, Rodriguez Williams, Sherwood, Singh, Slagle, Smith, Stith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Trujillo, Walters, Ward, Washit, excused, Western, Winter, Wiley, Yin, Zwaniter Dan, Zwaniter Dave, Speaker Summers. Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 54 aye, 8 excused.
All right, by your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 57. The next message for our consideration is message number 321. Vice Chair Rodriguez Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move message number 321 for concurrence. And ask for your favorable aye vote on it. It's just a simple correction on page 1, line 3. They deleted the word its and inserted there.
All right. Anybody got any objections to that? Okay. We are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 15. A majority of the elected members is required. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand, Allred, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Berger, Brown, Burkhart, Byron, Chadwick, Chestick, Clauston, excused, Conrad, Prego, Davis, Eklund, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Henderson, Warnock, Jennings? Knapp, excused. Larson Lloyd, excused. Larson JT? Lawley, excused. Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup, excused. Oakley, excused. Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza, excused. Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washit, excused. Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwaniter Dan? Zwaniter Dave? Speaker Summers?
Aye.
Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 44 aye, 10 no, 8 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 15. The next message for our consideration is message number 318 to House Bill 86, Chairman Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move message number 318 to House Bill 86 and ask for your favorable consideration, your aye vote. This was a standing committee amendment in the Senate that just restored the bill to its original intent when it came out of committee in the House. So good little amendment.
All right, we are voting on a good little amendment.
Mr. Chairman, can we have some discussion?
Oh, you bet. Chairman Zwanitzer.
Perhaps we could have an explanation of the change and why it makes the bill better. As we are adding all our criminal code, and just if there's any other explanation, that would be most excellent to hear.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the good chairman? Chairman Olson.
Sure. So just a little more explanation. This bill.
To the chair.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to offer a little more. This bill originally covered two realms of law, criminal and civil. And we had kind of gone back and forth on that a little bit, so we decided maybe it would only apply to the civil world. The Senate decided to go back to where we originally thought maybe it should apply to both the civil and the criminal world. So that's really what this amendment is doing, is saying that it applies to both the civil and criminal world.
All right, we are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 86. The majority of the elected members is required. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston, excused. Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Warnock? Jennings? Knapp, excused. Larson Lloyd, excused. Larson JT? Lawley, excused. Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup, excused. Oakley, excused. Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza, excused. Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washit, excused. Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers?
No.
Are there any changes? Closing. Burkhart? Aye to no. Heiner? Aye to no. Further. Zwanitzer Dave? Aye to no. Conrad? Aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 41 aye, 13 no, 8 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 86. The next message for our consideration, oh, maybe that's it. See what we got. All right, Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House resolve itself into committee of the whole.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Representative Pendergraft. Yay!
Committee of the Whole, please come to order. The first bill for our consideration, Senate File 16. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
Senate File 16, sponsored by Transportation, State Employee Moving Expenses, an act relating to the administration of the government. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 16 engrossed, State Employee Moving Expenses, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Berger, Brown, Nemec, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Smith, Wiley. Noes, Representatives Pendergraft, Stivar. Representative Brown, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 16 do pass. I further move the Standing Committee amendment, and I will turn the explanation over to the good freshman from the southwestern part of the state.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Representative Berger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Senate File 16 comes to us just to really quickly tell you what it's about. It's about providing a benefit for our state employees to be able to move within the state. So I'll give you a quick example. We have several, a few institutions that house criminals. So let's just say one is working as an officer at one of those places, and they want to move up, and they have an opportunity to take a position at one of the other facilities that gives them a raise, you know, and they decide to go to that facility, but maybe another state wants them to come and do the same job, but they're going to pay for their expenses. This is just another benefit for our state employees. And it's just not that for them, for this amendment. What we did with this amendment is we opened it up for not just YDOT employees, but they came to us, could we do this and to apply to all employees of all employees of the Department of Transportation, or we're going to strike all employees of the Department of Transportation, so it applies to all employees within the state agencies. So I ask your considerable vote in favor of this First Amendment.
Chairman Brown. Oh, sorry. All right. Representative?
Mr. Chairman, quick question for the good bringer of the bill. It appears that there's a need that necessitated this obvious bill. I guess my question is, as it resides in the fiscal note, it's actually zero. So is this a large issue that we're combating or trying to prevent? I guess my question ultimately resides in, if we open this up to the magnitude of state employees, isn't there any idea how many employees we're losing now, or we can attribute some sort of monetary value to what this really fiscal note should be, as we speak about everyone now trying to relocate from different areas and or counties, streets, or more importantly, states? Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Ward?
Oops.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm confused by the fiscal note. There must be some way we could determine a ballpark amount or how many employees might this apply to.
Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the answer to the question about the fiscal note and it basically saying that there is no true fiscal note is because the money that will ultimately pay for this is already obligated. This will come out of Series 100 funds, but you have vacancies that are never filled, and or if this particular position is not filled for X amount of months, what they would do is they would utilize that set of funds to pay for the moving expenses. Now, the moving expenses are going to be paid for by the agency from the money that's already in there, so that it's really a wash. And up until 2016, this was discretionary to the agency director. But in 2016, there was a legal opinion that was issued by the general attorney downstairs that said that they did not have this authority any longer. And what we've seen is over the past 6 to 7 years is this has truly affected recruitment and retention opportunities for good qualified state employees throughout the state. As the good bringer was mentioning, that it could be the department that oversees our correctional facilities. It could be YDOT. We've heard cases in which there's nursing shortages in one of the skilled nursing facilities. All types of situations like this where we can try to affect and entice good qualified candidates to coming to these locations and working for the state. What's holding them back from taking that next step is they may not be able to afford the $3,000 to $5,000 to move themselves. So what the Department of A&I and all these other agencies are kind of looking for is saying, hey, look, we have this money sitting aside. We'd really like to be able to utilize that for the moving expenses to just entice these people who would otherwise be fully qualified and fully ready to come into this job, but they can't afford the move. So on and for the bill.
Representative Berger? Is there any other discussion? Question having been called, forgive me, I don't remember the amendment being moved. Okay, so the question on the amendment. Question having been called, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment has passed, it is adopted, and we are back on the bill. Chairman Brown. Question having been called, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The chair is in doubt. All those in favor, please stand. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand. Please be seated. All those in favor, please stand. We are going to recount. All those in favor, please stand. Please stand still. Thank you. Please be seated. All those opposed, less than 27. I'm sorry. Okay. All those opposed, please stand. May be seated. Yep. Yeah, this is the bill. Trying to find the right words. Okay. Vote was 27, 24 in favor. Therefore, the bill has passed. We have passed. What bill number is it? Senate File 16 has passed the Committee of the Whole. Next bill for our consideration is Senate File 21. The reading clerk, please read the bill.
Senate File 21, sponsored by Transportation, High Occupancy Vehicle Lanes, an act relating to motor vehicles. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred Senate File 21 engrossed, High Occupancy Vehicle Lanes, respectfully report, same back to the House with a recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Berger, Brown, Nemec, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Pendergraft, Stivar, Wiley. Noes, Representative Smith. Representative Brown, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 21 do pass. I further move the Standing Committee amendment, and I will explain the bill and the amendment. And what I'll go ahead and do is I'll walk through the bill quickly, and then I'll take up the amendment as we walk through the bill. But, Mr. Chairman, what we've got is a situation up in the northwestern part of the state where we have a 2-lane road that is seeing anywhere between 17 and 22,000 cars a day. And they are in the process of getting ready to expand this particular road. But one of the things that they're interested in doing is creating a high occupancy vehicle lane. The problem with that is in doing this, there's really no enforcement mechanism because we don't have a single high occupancy vehicle lane in this entire state. So this is a little new to Wyoming. And so what we're looking at doing is creating some statutory language that would basically be the guiding principle on how HOV lanes are put into place. And so what this is doing is saying that any county, any group of county commissioners and or the director of the Department of Transportation has the authority to come in and designate either a complete stretch of road or a certain stretch of road as an HOV lane in an effort to try to reduce congestion. In this particular section of the state, we actually have a ski area that is very close to a very small town, and the amount of traffic going back and forth between these two locations has basically bottlenecked this area. And so when they get ready to expand this area, what they're looking at doing is making the 2 left lanes in this expanded street be HOV lanes, so the high occupancy vehicles anybody with 2 or more people, and specifically it's really the buses that they're talking about, would be able to go up and down and move mass transit amount of people in a very quick amount of time, as opposed to having these people sit on these buses and wait the same amount of time that as if they were just sitting in a single car. So that's what this is. There is the opportunity in the probably far, far future that this would be expanded to some other locations throughout the state. But at this point, between all the testimony that we heard, not only now, but through the interim, is that it's going to be this one particular stretch of road. And it's only going to be once the information is developed and once they have gone through the process of developing this new road. Now, Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to do is go through the amendment with you quickly. And the amendment does start on page 2, line 12, and we strike the word bicycles. This was something that one of our particular committee members felt pretty strongly about, that bicycles should probably not be in these HOV lanes. This was originally thought that if there is an HOV lane, you know, and there's no shoulder, that maybe a bike can be sitting in the HOV lane and would not be in trouble of, you know, for riding in that particular area. So that was brought forward. And then the more, I would say the larger issue in this particular amendment is the fines and the imposition of the fines for violating the HOV rules, which go into page 3, and that's on line 8, 12, and 16, and then 17. And basically what our committee decided is that the $25 seems like it's almost not even worth it. Go ahead and just take the fine, pay the $25, and you can shoot back across that Highway 22 and be there in a quick hurry. Do it again, it's only $50, and then every time, heck, it's $100 and you can be done with it. So what the committee decided to do was double those fees that the other body down the hall had brought them over to us. So those would now be $50 to get started, $100 for the secondary offense, and $150 for the third offense. So Mr. Chairman, I would ask for an aye vote on the amendment, and then we can discuss the bill in further detail if so needed.
Representative Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to speak to the bill, so I'll hold my comment.
You've heard the motion on the Standing Committee amendment. You're ready for the question. Question having been called, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The amendment has passed. It is adopted. We are back on the bill. Representative Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The fact that Wyoming does not have these is one of the many things that I consider beautiful and awesome about Wyoming. And I implore you, members, please don't go down this road and join other states with this kind of thing. I urge a no vote.
Representative Byron.
Thank you, Chairman. The larger issue here is the bottleneck, and this is a good bill, and it's addressing a specific problem. I don't forecast it'll be used in many other communities, but we have a situation on a 2-lane highway that can be 2 hours by one of our busiest fire stations to get an ambulance out the door, and it's about 200 days a year. So this is just something that the department that deals with our roads and highways has asked for to solve a potential problem, and it's a tool in their tool chest should they decide to design the highway a certain way. So don't be fearful that this is going to be adopted on every one of our highways. This is specific to a highway in my district, and I urge a yes vote on the bill because it certainly would allow the engineers and planners to come up with a better option. Thank you.
Representative Davis.
Mr. Speaker, as to the last remark, I think, doesn't the Highway Department have that ability to make those designs? But anyway, my whole point to the bill is it's a one size fits the whole state, but we don't need it. It's site specific here. And you know, most highways in Wyoming, we got one lane going one way, one lane going the other way, and an occasional passing lane for those of us who are impatient. So the other question I had in there is the definition of high occupancy is 2 people, according to the bill, or has that been changed, or did I miss that? Okay. Well, you know, our high occupancy time in the oil and gas industry is usually in the morning and in the evening. And that's usually just one person per vehicle going out or coming back. So I'm just a little confused at what this bill is even about.
Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess two questions. First of all, the language of the bill does not specifically state that one little area in front of a fire station we're talking about. The language of the bill seems to indicate that this could be a cover for the entire state. So that's one question. Then the second question is, how in this scenario do we stop what we see as we drive south on the freeway? So what commonly happens is they open up the HOV lanes, and there's still bottleneck traffic in the other lanes, the non-HOV lanes, and then very few cars are in the HOV lanes because, well, they're just not used, a lot of single occupants or something like that. So how do we solve, do we know that this will solve that kind of an issue? Thanks.
Representative Wiley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, testimony in committee, the department that handles our roadways, they had another option, and that option is $1 million a mile if we went that way. I don't know about everybody else, but that's a lot of jackrabbits. So I think a high occupancy lane might be a simple fix. You know, not so much money spent, and alleviate a problem that does exist. Thanks.
Representative Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm usually kind of against this sort of thing, but I just have a question from the good bringer of the bill. So was there any discussion in the committee, something that's very near and dear to me, of taking that HOV lane and in the off hours turning that into an Autobahn?
Representative O'Hearn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We heard from the ski area, the planners, the county commissioners, the sheriff's department, and the highway maintainers. This was an interim topic that was brought to us about 6 or 8 months ago. They've been working this problem for over 12 years because one of the former representatives on this floor was a county commissioner in that area. Most of you know him. He's been working this for a long time. He says they have the most robust bus system of any town in Wyoming and maybe even anywhere in that area. The state of Wyoming doesn't have this law yet, and it's not a statute. It was brought to us by this community. It's not going worldwide just yet. This is just in one little area, and it will help on for the bill.
Representative Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the way I understand is this is a short period of time during kind of a tourist upturn in the area that we're going to try to address. So my question is, what's going to happen with that extra lane through the rest of the year? Is it going to sit vacant? Is it going to go back into a regular piece of roadway? That's my question about that one. And my other question, the way I understand the bill is it gives any commissioner or of the area the ability to put this in at other places around the state. So is that the same thing that we're going to see around the state when there's a uptick in tourists? We're going to put in a new lane of road, and then the rest of 7 months throughout the year is just going to stay vacant.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. On in support of the bill, but I do have some questions on the bill itself. And I do certainly recognize the challenge that area has to move vehicles and move people around. And I think it's really important that we facilitate that. But my question on the bill to the good chairman is, and it kind of goes to what the previous speaker just mentioned, the any authority, right? We're saying any authority or the director, and I'm curious why this is not a commission decision and so any authority anywhere in the state, the way I read that, could declare a segment of road. And, and I guess what was the discussion about that? Why that? Does it make any difference if we do that? I don't know. I'm just wondering. That was my curiosity. But on and for the bill.
Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we just need to remember that this is going to, if we pass it, happen or could happen anywhere in the state. We've spent a lot of time focusing on the northwest corner of the state, but this could happen anywhere. But really all that's being addressed here, as I read it, is the ability for the penalties to occur on these high occupancy lanes. The commission can already create the high occupancy lanes, but they currently don't have a mechanism to penalize people if they are driving one person in a vehicle when they should be having two or more. So that's really what this is about. The commission could create high occupancy lanes today, I believe, but we just are talking about how do we create a penalty in which those are not filling their vehicles.
Representative Alaman.
I just kind of wonder, Mr. Chairman, I just kind of wonder where we're going to stop with this. Highway 387 between Midwest and Gillette is full of rigs, full of water trucks. I don't think we need it though. How about over in the Big Basin when the farmers come out on the road with their tractors? Do we need a new lane for them also? I just think this is a pretty slippery slope we're headed down. Thank you.
Representative Ahern.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This isn't just a seasonal thing in this area. Tourism is our second largest money producing economy. It helps year round. And if it happens in other places in the state, what a bad thing to happen. On for the bill.
Representative Storer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, just to finish up, agree with Representative Walters' comments that we do have the ability to build the roads now. This is just a way to make sure that we can enforce it. There was an amendment put on that actually significantly reduced the penalties. We realize that getting used to these ideas and making things like this work, I remember when roundabouts were a foreign idea here in this county, and now they're pretty well loved. So I will just say that in the county from which I'm from, we are struggling to deal with traffic. This is a way that we really do think we can improve the experience for both our workers and our visitors alike. And I wish you to vote aye. Thank you.
Just a reminder that we try not to use personal names. Representative Newsom.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that this body is charged with being forward-looking and that we need to look at the needs within our counties and with the road system within Wyoming. Several years ago, it was determined between my town of Cody and Powell that there was a lot of traffic, and now that's a 5-lane road. There's 2 lanes going each way and a turn lane in the middle. And that has decreased accidents significantly on that road. When it was brought up, people were like, no, we don't have that much traffic. Well, if you drive that road on any regular basis, you will know that we do have that much traffic. No different in Teton County. They do have that much traffic. They do need to expand the road system, and they do need to find a way for their public transportation, which I don't think any of us in the rest of the state have public transportation, but they do need to find a way to get those people that use public transportation from point A to point B as quickly as possible. And I think this particular bill is a good solution for that particular problem in that particular county.
Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to try to wrap this up and we can get to a couple other bills. So a couple of the questions that were asked. First of all, was there any discussion about the timing? Can this be used during some times of the day and then turned into a potential Autobahn? I don't think the Autobahn was ever considered. However, it was very, very much so considered that these HOV lanes would only be on during certain times of the day, during high rush hour traffic, those types of things. And I think that's probably fair. You're going to still have the 2 lanes of traffic going either way, but during the end of the day, when everybody's coming off the slopes and coming back into town, they're going to have that HOV lane be specifically for those high occupancy vehicles. The idea of high occupancy vehicle, you can tell you live in Wyoming when a high occupancy vehicle is 2 people. So I certainly understand the concern on that. The other one is this going to start happening all over when we have farmers coming out and we have sugar beets being moved or whatever the case may be? And the answer is, who knows? To be honest with you, that's up to the local authority. And that's what this body does, is we create laws that allow local authority to go into this and create these roads. And then the question was asked, well, I don't see this very, very specific area that we're talking about being located in this bill. Well, that's because that pesky thing called the Constitution prohibits us from doing that. The Constitution says we can't make specific language that affects very specific areas, that we have to make a carte blanche across the state. And then if a local authority wants to adopt this resolution and they want to put this in, they're going to go ahead and be able to do that. And then the last thing that I wanted to make sure that we touched on was the fines. The discussion about, making sure that we have an availability to enforce this. What's the point in having the department who builds these roads and everything along those lines build this road and then not be able to enforce it on the people that are coming from out of state? They're driving their vehicles 1 person at a time and they're coming back and forth. If we can't enforce this, there's no reason in even adopting this language. So will this come to your town? Maybe. As the good chairman of Travel Rec said, that we need to be forward-looking, I would completely agree. So this is an opportunity for Wyoming to fix a problem, and they've identified it. It's a potential solution. It's a potential tool in our bag, but not a guarantee that it's going to fix anything. I don't think that we have anything that gets debated in this body as a guaranteed fix. So on and for the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Brown's motion that when the committee of the whole rise to report it, do so with the recommendation that bill number 21, Senate File 21, do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no? No. The chair is in doubt. All those in favor, please stand. All those opposed, please stand. You may be seated. Senate File 21 has passed the Committee of the Whole. Next bill for our consideration is Senate File 29.
Senate File 29, sponsored by Agriculture. Brucellosis management updates. An act relating to agriculture, livestock, and other animals. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 5, Agriculture, State, Public Lands, and Water Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 29. Brucellosis management updates. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Alaman, Allred, Banks, Conrad, Crago, Davis, Eklund, Slagle, Winter. Representative Eklund, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Eklund?
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 29 do pass. And I'll turn the explanation over to my colleague on the Ag Committee from the waters that run hot, the doc of the day.
You stole my thunder. Representative Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill is, the purpose of this bill is for Wyoming to maintain its brucellosis-free status. And there's been a few changes just to make things a little bit clearer. First of all, they've taken away the requirement to brand an infected cow branding it with a B on its left tail head. So that's been, it's now a may do or instead of a shall. The Livestock Board has, they're making some temporary surveillance areas in addition to the existing designated surveillance areas. And these temporary areas are due primarily to the current situation with wildlife, namely elk that may be affected with brucellosis, and they're continually grazing with a lot of the livestock in the area. There's been a movement to remove some of these wildlife, or actually elk feed grounds, and so that's caused a greater effect on the livestock producers. So these temporary surveillance areas have been designated. There's a brucellosis mitigation plan, and they've developed a means by where the services by the veterinarians and the livestock auction markets can be paid for their services. And I guess that's probably pretty close to the payments for these services. The process has been simplified somewhat just by referring to the necessary documentation in a format and manner specified by the board. So I would hope that you'd vote aye on this bill.
Is there any discussion on the bill? You ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Eklund's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 29 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 29 has passed the Committee of the Whole. Next bill for our consideration, Senate File 38. Rating clerk will please read the bill.
Senate File 38, sponsored by Senator Schuler. Special license plates, organ donations, an act relating to motor vehicle license plates. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred Senate File 38 engrossed. Special license plates, organ donations, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Berger, Brown, Nemec, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Pendergraft, Wiley. Noes, Representative Smith, Stivar. Representative Brown, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. Chairman Brown, what is your pleasure?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 38 do pass. I further move the Standing Committee Amendment, and I'll explain the Standing Committee Amendment briefly, and then I'll turn the explanation of the bill over to the co-sponsor. So the Standing Committee Amendment, ladies and gentlemen, just removes 500 of these license plates. The original language of the bill said 1,000 license plates has to be created. The committee went ahead and said we'd like that to just be down to 500. So we can debate the topic of the bill, but that's what all it does is just move down that only 500 of these have to be sold within the first year in order to be a continuous cycle of plates. So with that, I'd ask for any questions or ask for the question.
You've heard the motion on the Standing Committee Amendment. You're ready for the question. Question being called. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The amendment has been adopted. We're back on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will turn the good explanation over to the co-sponsor of the bill from the southwest portion of the state.
Representative Conrad.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I do want to preface my remarks by sharing with you in full transparency, this is a constituent bill. Specifically, it revolves a father and a son in the southwest corner. This son was born with a heart and a half, and through a number of surgeries, a multitude of surgeries, he has ultimately decided that in order for this young man to survive, this child to survive, he needed a heart transplant. I want to share that preface by sharing with you some data, more importantly, some facts. There's approximately 150,000 people on the waiting list for organs in this country, specifically the United States. And when we talk about Wyoming alone, there's 140 Wyoming residents that are lacking the respective organs they need to survive. 63% of all Wyomingites have signed up to be donors already on their cards, specifically their driver's license card. And hopefully this bill will raise awareness specifically for us and others to be cognizant of the fact that people are in need of our organs. It sounds tough. One donor, one person in this room can save 75 people through tissues, donations. Specifically, obviously, we have 2 eyes. Those 2 eyes can save individuals through even eye donations. Sadly, there's 17 people in the United States that die every day waiting for life-saving organs. I finally conclude with these remarks, specifically as we talked about that young man that I mentioned had a heart and a half. As he was waiting for a transplant, one of his best friends died as well, waiting for a heart transplant. The beauty of this is, and he wanted to call awareness to this fact, this license plate, which has and you can look at the fiscal notes specifically, but thanks to the organ donation, this young man is a healthy high school student now involved in sports and other activities based on this one donation, this one heart that will allow him to see fruition, college, marriage, etc. He's one of the real success stories in this state, and I'd ask your support on this bill. When we review the fiscal notes, I think it's important to note, as already been denoted, there's 500 license plate. The cost of this is inconsequential, I should say, based on respectively the outcome of that. Specifically, it's around $3,750 a year for 3 years. If you look in totality for the total amount that this bill would cost us is approximately $17,850. The thing that we're asking for in this bill is that those who wish to purchase this plate can do so with a donation of $1 or $0 or $500 or whatever the case may be. That money that's donated to this respective cause will then go to the Department of Health, where they allow them to, more importantly, increase anatomical awareness account so that we can increase the awareness and education required for the procurement of organ and tissue donations for this precious gift for those who are in need in this state. I stand for any questions. Thank you.
Question having been called. All those in favor of Chairman Brown's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rise to report it, do so with the recommendation that Bill number Senate File 38 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 38 has passed the Committee of the Whole. Next bill for our consideration is Senate File 58. Reading clerk will read the bill. Certainly. Representative
Chairman, I
Bear.
have the privilege of the floor.
Absolutely, Representative. Privilege of the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to a group in the West Balcony. This is Gillette Area Leadership Institute, a great organization that has produced many a leader in my community. Would you please rise to support Gillette Area Leadership? Galley, and over here on this side too.
Representative Harrelson. Next item for our consideration is Senate File 58. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
Senate File 58, sponsored by Travel. Sutton Archaeological Site Administration, an act relating to state lands. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 58 engrossed, Sutton Archaeological Site Administration, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Angelos, Burkhart, Byron, Larson, Newsom, Singh, Storer, Western, Winter. Representative Western, Vice Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Chairman Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, that it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 58 do pass. And I'll turn over the presentation of the bill to my colleague from House District 4.
Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So today we have Senate File 58, the Sutton Archaeological Site Administration. And to introduce this, we probably need to tell a little bit of a story. So in the county that I live in, there's a really impressive little mine that was nestled back up into the kind of the bluff country. And this mine, as they mined a number of different, but iron ore mostly up in this country, they found themselves that they ran into something very interesting, and that was an old ochre mine. And if you don't know what ochre is, I've got a jar of it right over on my desk over there. I challenge you to go over, open the lid, and look at it. It's a iridescent mineral that was used by the American Indians, Native Americans, for all of their war paint and their paints. They actually found that the ochre was brought from the Mississippi line all the way to the coast and distributed through trade throughout all of the different tribes. It's quite unique. The only other mine in existence is in South America. So we have one of two in the county I live in. It's kind of a cool story. Well, in this, they had been mining this, and above that mine was a piece of property, roughly 46 acres, that was owned by the Sutton family. And when John Sutton passed away, he donated this property to the state of Wyoming for the use of archaeological exploration. And so this site is very unique in its nature. It's not the site with the ochre mine on it, but is directly above it, and it would have been probably a place where they would have done camping or would have stayed and had all sorts of different things related to this mine that we can tell in this area. So I was part of that site evaluation this last year as we talked about what this looks like. And out of this site evaluation, we had the opportunity for our department that deals with our parks to actually bring this in and have the discussion of bringing this in as an archaeological site. So page 2, line 6, the land in Platte County managed by the department as of July 1st, 2023 is the Sutton State Archaeological Site. This site shall consist of the following real properties of 46 and 382 thousandths acres in Section 6, Township 27, Range 65, Mineral Survey 196. Anyways, what this really translates out to is we're going to take and we're going to open up the opportunity to protect this site and use it for archaeological and historical ramifications. So I would ask for your aye vote. I believe this is a very good use of this. It would protect it and make it where we could look into this and kind of get a glimpse into that past history as we do that. Thank you, and ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion on the bill? Question being called? Nope. Whoa. Chairman Eklund.
So I'm not seeing a fiscal note. Has there been one prepared, or will it cost us anything?
Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to answer the good representative's question, the fiscal note is not on here because the amount that the Parks feels is going to have to put into this is just shy of $200,000, and they have that money already in their budget that they're going to use, so it will not take any general fund appropriation or fiscal appropriation from this body.
You ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Newsom's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 84 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Senate File 84 has passed the Committee of the Whole. My apologies, Senate File 58. I do know my numbers when I see them. Next item for our consideration is Senate File 84. Reading clerk, please read the bill.
Senate File 84, sponsored by Senator Ellis. Education, Model Student Attendance Policies, an act relating to education. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4, Education, to whom is referred Senate File 84 engrossed. Education, Model Student Attendance Policies, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Allred, Andrew, Berger, Brown, Clauston, Lawley, Northrup, Obermueller, Provenza. Representative Northrup, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 84 do pass. And there is an amendment. And I will move Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 84. And Representative, I'm sorry. Nope. Give me the, got caught. We're not ready. What's that?
You're on the list. You should know.
I don't even remember the. Okay.
But go get Brown. Oh, sorry.
Representative Provenza.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Senate File 84 is the education student attendance policies. So what we're doing here in Title 21 is having the superintendent develop policies that have to do with what is excused versus unexcused absences. I do see that one of the co-sponsors is here, and so he may have a better description for you. But ultimately, what we're doing, or what this bill does, is gets the state to come up with policies so that we can potentially not be basically docking kids or having to send the county attorney after parents if they miss 5 days of school to go to something that would benefit their education.
Representative Larson.
So this is another attempt to really, we identified a problem earlier in the session where we added some language to the bill on the state fair, recall. And this is just, which is real. And so this language just further gives some direction to our school boards not to get silly when we have these kids involved in all these extracurricular activities that are important, and to have some flexibility there on their excused and unexcused absence. It's just, we're trying to get our statutes to where we don't have to put in specific instances to disqualify them that, or to say what's excused and not excused. And so I think it's a good bill. I hope we'll do it and hope you'll support it so that we don't have to identify each little activity that we as a legislature deems as appropriate. Let local control do it and kind of force them to do it. So good bill.
Representative Hornock, are you on the amendment or are you on the bill? Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for the good bringer of the bill. Seems to me, and I just want to make sure I'm reading this right, but seems to me that it requires parents, guardians, and custodians to request the absence in writing. Can I get some clarification on what that in writing means and what that is? Thanks.
Chairman Brown.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, and my apologies for not being on the floor when this bill was brought forward, but I do want to go specifically to the amendment because I do believe that will help address the question that was just brought from the freshman here in Cheyenne. So if you go to the amendment, ladies and gentlemen, this is actually, I think, in my opinion, a little bit of a cleanup of the language, and I did work with the sponsor of this bill in committee to try to make this a little bit more palatable. And as the good vice chairman of appropriations mentioned, what we've done is literally over the past 5 years is this body has worked really hard to try to fix a couple of the issues when it comes to habitual truancy and chronic absenteeism in schools. And about 5 years ago, there was a bill brought that was just this monumental bill that changed everything all at once. And this body said, not only no, but heck no, we're not doing it that way. So what we've started doing is we've started piecemealing the individual pieces and working with the people who are really truly invested in this, which is our students, our parents, and our administrators at the school level, you know, at the district level. And we've said, work with us to try to figure out what it is that we can do to make this work better. And so what we've heard continuously in the education committee over this time frame is, don't tell us in statute what we have to have in our policies. Let the school district decide that. Let the people closer to the problem actually be developed there, because what may be good in Bighorn 1 may not be the same as Laramie County 2, and may not be the same as Uinta 1. So that's really the issue here. And so what we're saying is we're attempting to make a model policy that takes all the best practices throughout the entire state and puts them up for availability to the local school districts to say, yeah, we kind of like that, or no, that's not going to work here. And the local school district can choose to make those model policies happen. And if they decide they like that model, fantastic, they could adopt it carte blanche and just go with it, or they can take individual pieces of it and mold it to what fits their community. Going specifically into the amendment takes the information that the good representative was just talking about, the custodian absences requested by the student's parent, guardian, or custodian in writing that do not significantly affect the student's academic performance or absence for a student's mental health shall not constitute an unexcused absence. Well, the committee kind of had some interesting discussions on that, and instead of putting that right where it says that it will not be that way, we actually went down into underneath the section 2 here. And there's actually some different, or I'm sorry, right underneath this is letter A. So this would end up becoming 40 actually. And so what we did is we said, this is going to be a subparagraph. And instead of guaranteeing that if a parent comes in and just says, hey, look, I'm taking my kid out, and therefore you must excuse him for 15 days so I can go to the Bahamas with my family, that's not really what we were trying to get to. What we're trying to say is, if there's an opportunity for a parent to come forward and say, hey, look, my student is going to be gone, and I'd really like my student to try to be caught up before they leave. And I also don't want to be getting a notification that when I'm gone for 10 days and my student's gone for 10 days, I don't want to get a letter from the school district saying you're going to be turning me over to the district attorney for chronic absenteeism. And that's what's happening right now. So if a family goes on vacation and they go to their district right now, there's really no recourse in some districts that allow that to happen. And it's not fair to the parents, it's not fair to the student, because, well, what happens when a parent wants to take a student to Washington, D.C.? There's plenty of educational experience and opportunity out there. So we're saying, hey, look, if you're gonna do that, you need to make sure that the school district has to adopt, and that's the bottom portion of this amendment. We strike all that information out of here from the original bill, and we come in and we say on subsection 40 here, it'll be adopt a policy that provides a parent the ability to request a pre-approved excused absence. Pre-approved absences approved by the teacher and agreed to by the parent may include advanced coursework, testing, or any combination thereof. Due consideration of educational opportunities and student academic performance may be used as evidence to provide acceptance of a pre-approved absence. So we're giving this idea that, look, if you're going to adopt a policy at the district level, and you're going to say that they have the availability to have a pre-approved absence, you should be able to look at what educational opportunities is this student going to have. Are they going to the Bahamas for 2 weeks and they're not going to learn much of anything? Or are they going to be going to Mount Rushmore and then to DC and they're going to be learning U.S. history? So, and then the last sentence is probably the most important, and it says, nothing in this paragraph shall require a district to pre-approve any absence. And that's really just kind of the safeguard for the district to say, hey, look, we don't have to approve this, but it certainly gives the parent the opportunity to request this and work with the district and the teacher. The last thing that this particular amendment goes into is the student's mental health piece. And I want to make sure that we cover that as well. And what we cover on that is up in the subsection A, we actually have the language that will say line 2 and line, or I'm sorry, page 2, line 19. When you have that coming through, the way that it would read now is an absence due to an illness, injury, or health care, including mental health care needs of the student. And what we heard during committee, and it's pretty impressive that we had the young lady that was there, because she came to testify that her brother had committed suicide. And when her brother committed suicide, she had a hard time with her mental health and being able to come to school. Well, the district fought back and said, look, mental health is not covered. I would venture to say that I think healthcare is, but I think we need to make sure that it's explicitly clear that mental health is covered when it comes to these types of issues. And so we made sure we added that in, and then we kind of adjusted the wording of the bill. And again, this is something that I worked with the sponsor on the bill to make sure that we had this. And then the last thing that we added around that mental health component was the attendance officer shall notify the school principal and the guidance counselor of any name and grade of any student that has 5 or more absences due to mental health in a single school year. And that's really just to make sure that we're addressing that if there's something seriously wrong, we know what's going on with that student. That's just to say, hey, look, is there any school resources that we can make sure that we're focusing on? Is there anything that we can provide to that student to ensure that they're not falling behind at school, even though they're having the mental health issues? So in a nutshell, Mr. Chairman, that is the amendment. It's kind of it's the same bill. It's just kind of flipped on its head and reworded to make it fit the intent of what we were trying to do as a committee a little bit better.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Discussion on the amendment, Representative Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have some concerns about this amendment and also the bill. Philosophically, I believe parents have the right to say to any public school, my child will not be in today, and not have to give any reason. As a parent, it is my responsibility to look after the education of my children, and I do have 2 in high school. My school is not demanded of me that I give a reason why I'm calling in to call them absent today, and nor should they, in my opinion. For that reason, I'm a no on this amendment and a no on the bill.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Question having been called, all those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 84, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The amendment has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Chairman Brown. Division having been called, all in favor of Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 84, please stand. All those opposed, please stand. Standing Committee Amendment number 1 has failed, 3428. I'm sorry, I'm not hearing well. Has passed, 3428, 22. Standing commitment has passed. We are back on the bill. Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to the good representative from the center part of the state that, you know, laid out honestly, the information that, you know, I should be able to call my kid out of school whenever I want, and it really isn't the school district's responsibility. We actually have statute in the Green Book that says otherwise. And what we have, and the reason why this bill is coming, this is probably the 4th or 5th step, is we have parents that were not calling in their kids, and the kids were habitually truant. And when the kid was habitually truant, you then, the school was left up to the situation of, is it the kid's fault or is it the parent's fault? Is the kid being dropped off at school and then as soon as the parent drives away, the kid's ditching and running away? Or is this the kid is waiting to go to school, but mom and dad are never home, and so they don't make it, and so the kid ends up not being able to get to school? And so what this is trying to do, and again, this has been piece by piece by piece, which, you know, in the world of policymaking, incrementalism is the way that we do our best work. And that's exactly what this is doing. And I will say, to be completely honest with you, the amendment that you just adopted is a far, far better version than what the original bill intended, because it's actually what the bringer of the bill was trying to do. The last thing that I will say is we have an obligation as a state when we're spending $16,000 for a student, we have an obligation to make sure that those students succeed. And if we're paying for those students to succeed, they need to be in school. And if you're going to take your kid out of school for 15 days to go across the country or whatever it is, that's fine. But if it has a negative impact on your student, that's not the school's fault. And we hear that a lot, that the schools, you know, we're not seeing the numbers out of what we're paying for our education. I'd venture to guess that that's not always the case, and it's not always the school's fault. And so all this is trying to do is just trying to level out the playing field and say, hey, look, we recognize that parents are going to need to take their kids out of school. There's going to be opportunities for kids to be in their local school district and may have to go to 4-H or whatever the case may be. There's going to be other times where the family just can't escape and they just don't want to be prosecuted by the DA. And that's all we're trying to clean up, is that if you're going to be requesting your kid to take some time off, you have an avenue to do that now. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Berger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm not in favor of this bill, and in our district, we have great policies, and we do really well with kids who are going to be absent, and our parents that want to take kids out of school for a long period of time, wherever, you know, and we do that. But we still give them a notice and send them a notice that they were gone 10 days. That's just part of policy. You know, I've taken my children on a long vacation and had a notice in the mail. They just still notice you. That's fine. I agree with the noticing. The issue is the habitual absences. And it starts at first grade. When it starts at first grade, between first and third grade, when these kids miss 30, 35, 55 days per year, you can tell between first and third grade what the pattern's going to be by the time they're a senior in high school. And it's really hard. The key is these kids in the classroom. That's what we want. And we got to work and fix it there. On and gets this bill.
Representative Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to see if I could clear up some things. If your goal is to make it easier for parents to obtain excused absences for their children, then you should vote for this bill. This might seem like it makes a difference in something that they do in your own district, but there are districts within the state where we have had issues that parents wanted to take their kids out of school for traumatic issues that happened in the family. And there was no way for them to get an excused absence for that because the district did not have a policy. This requires them to have a policy for that. So if your district already has a policy for that, nothing changes. But if they don't have a policy for that, they're going to have to relax a little bit. On for the bill.
Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The bill as amended, I'm not, let me just clear up something that was mentioned earlier. So somebody mentioned how much we spend per student. We spend a lot of money. We spend $16,000 per student, but let's not forget that the parents spend their all. So if we're comparing who owns the child by the amount that's spent, I think that the parents kind of own that one. Thanks.
Is there any other discussion on the bill? Question having been called, all those in favor of Chairman Northrup's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with a recommendation that Senate File 84 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 84 has failed the voice vote. Division being called. All those in favor of Senate File 84, please stand. All those in favor of Senate File 84, please stand. All those opposed, please stand. At less than 42. Senate File 84 has passed the Committee of the Whole. Next bill for our consideration is Senate File 87. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
Senate File 87, sponsored by Senator Cooper. Natural resource funding, large project threshold increase, an act relating to the administration of government. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 87, natural resource funding, large project threshold increase. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Angelos, Burkhart, Byron, Larson, Newsom, Singh, Storer, Western, Winter. Representative Western, Vice Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Newsom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move when the Committee of the Whole rises to report that it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 87 do pass. And I turn the presentation over to the good representative from House District 23.
Representative Storer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 87 merely updates the figures related to large projects funded by the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resource Trust in recognition that the costs of projects has increased significantly since the trust was first established in 2005. So this is really merely just an inflationary fix. It changes the monetary threshold for large projects from $200,000 to $400,000. This is the threshold that requires legislative approval. And it changes from from 200 to 100,000, from 100 to 200,000. 200 to 400,000. Thank you. Sorry. It was this.
No further discussion on the bill? Question having been called, all those in favor of Chairman Newsom's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 87 do pass. Please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 87 has passed the committee of the whole. Next bill for our consideration is Senate File 102. The reading clerk, please read the bill.
Senate File 102, sponsored by Senator Salazar. Food Freedom Act amendments, an act relating to marketing homemade foods. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 102 engrossed. Food Freedom Act amendments. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Alaman, Allred, Banks, Conrad, Crago, Davis, Eklund, Slagle, Winter. Representative Eklund, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Eklund?
Mr. Chairman, and I'll say Mr. Chairman a second time because I think I addressed your chair without addressing you, and I'm sorry, earlier. I would move to hold the bill back for a day. We thought we had that fixed, and it didn't happen. The computers are all messed up. Just as I've said, we shouldn't be using computers at all. But I'd like to do the bill tomorrow. That's a motion.
Without objection, Senate File 102 is held back one day. Next bill for our consideration is Senate File 106. Reading clerk, please read the bill.
Senate File 106, sponsored by Natural Resource Funding. 2023 Large Project Funding, an act relating to the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resource Funding Act. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 106 engrossed, 2023 Large Project Funding. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Angelos, Burkhart, Byron, Larson, Newsom, Singh, Storer, Western, Winter. Representative Western, Vice Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Newsom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move when the committee of the whole rises to report that it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 106 do pass, and I turn the presentation over to my colleague from House District 51.
Representative Western.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the context of this bill is that the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resources Trust was set up in 2005, and it's done a lot of really good work around our state, just improving habitat, improving in-stream flow for our rivers, all sorts of really good projects that we need to maintain our wildlife, which is, I would argue, that's one of our crown jewels here in Wyoming. This bill comes before us because there's a requirement that if a project is over $200,000, they have to submit, the trust has to submit a list to us for approval. And so that's really what this is. And every single legislature, they submit a list of the projects they've been working on, or they've been involved with, or that they're trying to help fund. So that's really the gist of the bill and what it is and what it does. I'd be more than happy if there are questions about specific projects. Feel free to ask away.
Any discussion on the bill? Question having been called, all those in favor of Chairman Newsom's motion? Sorry. Representative Harold.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I want to just, kind of help. Maybe everyone in here knows, the freshmen in here know, but I didn't my first year, and I want to explain a little bit of what this looks like. So there was a trust fund set up to help with wildlife management in our state. And that fund has been funded into the realm of about $200 million. It's a very large fund. So this fund produces basically an interest roll-off that is used for these projects. They could be anything from a wildlife crossing to a fish ladder to any number of things. Look at your bill, you'll see what they are. And so I just want to talk about what this means. So my first thing was I looked at the numbers and went, oh my goodness, that's a ton of money. Why would we ever spend that? Don't spend that money. And so I voted no for it the first year. But one of the things I think we need to understand about this, and the thing that we need to, this is the policy question here really isn't if we agree with spending the money or not spending the money. The policy question is, do you agree with the projects? Because this money, because of how this trust was set up, will go towards these projects. Now, we can have some feedback into what projects there are in the committee, and here on the floor we can discuss the projects. But the actual funding of it was already established by a prior legislature. So I would just challenge you, if your concern here is, oh my goodness, we're spending all this money, that money is going to be spent. So the policy question is, do we agree with that type of a fund? And should that continue? That's the policy question. But when we vote on this, this isn't saying, hey, let's take millions of dollars out of the general fund to go towards these projects. So I just want you to be aware of that as you vote for this, that we're in a place right now where we are overseeing those projects that are $200,000 or more. That's these projects you're seeing right now. The rest of the projects, tons of them, we don't even get to see. The bill you just passed, now it makes it $400,000 now. So that list of projects will go down that we get to actually have a say on or see. And again, these are just policy questions that you have to be aware of. So when you vote for this, this is coming out of a pre-built trust fund that we are using the interest off of to fund these projects. And you're seeing projects that are 200,000 or more. So I wanted you to be aware before you voted on this what that actually meant.
Any other discussion on the bill? Representative Larson, Chairman Larson.
Thank you, and I appreciate the explanation from the previous speaker because he's right, and particularly on, that was the reason we created the trust account, is so that we could take the interest and use it for conservation projects. Boom. So it's not a matter of whether we think we should use them for conservation or non-conservation. That's what statute has required us to do. We bring, again, as he points out, the good educator over there that always has little bills, when he was setting up in the chair, I think got tired of me coming up and arguing against these projects all the time and put me on that committee. And I seen the light and have really become a proponent of the process. And I would just offer to you that as you look at these projects, and they're big and they cover a lot of different things, if you have concerns about the type of projects they are or where they're at, boy, I just encourage you to go over, walk across the street. I'll go with you. It's scary, but we can get there and we'll sit down with that director and just go through, because they go through a very rigorous refining process. They watch those dollars. There's a section of river that runs in my community that we have this Healthy Rivers Initiative, and there's a section of rivers that they just keep piecemealing. The conservation district kind of keeps piecemealing, and the director come back and says, rejected it, the whole thing, and says, until you come with an overall plan that's more efficient and we understand, we're not going to do this. They just really do a good job at vetting these with the commission. And again, I hope that you'll support these. We lead the nation in these conservation projects, and I think that they do an incredible job. Thank you.
Mr. Majority Whip. Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On and for this bill. Just wanted to give some stats. So the average match to these projects is a 7-to-1 private investment. And there's one that's actually 34-to-1 private investment. So it's not just the state investing in these projects, it's private investment. a lot of nonprofits are contributing to this. So vote aye on the bill.
Any other discussion on the bill? Question being called.
It's not necessary. If this good, it's going to go. Question.
Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Newsom's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 106 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 106 has passed the committee of the whole. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee of the whole rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, aye. You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is carried.
The clerk will please read the committee of the whole report.
Mr. Speaker, your committee of the whole, having had under consideration bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. Senate File 16, do pass amended. Senate File 21, do pass amended. Senate File 29, do pass. Senate File 38, do pass amended. Senate File 58, do pass. Senate File 84, do pass amended. Senate File 87, do pass. Senate File 102, laid back one day. Senate File 106, do pass. Representative Pendergraft, Chairman.
Chairman Pendergraft.
I move the adoption of the committee of the whole report.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The motion carries. Congratulations, Representative Pendergraft. We'll stand at ease for a minute. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just for clarification, when we were going through the committee of the whole there a minute ago, you all thought there was a bill coming up, and it shocked the insides out of our good chairman of agriculture, because he'd come up and asked me to move a bill back down. Well, I moved it on your computers. All of you all saw it, but I printed a copy to bring up to my good clerks up here and to my chief clerk, and I didn't get that done. So that was the look of fear and what is happening when by both sides. So that was my mistake. We got that cleared up, so it's not rolled back. It'll come up tomorrow. So you guys were updated. They didn't know because I didn't print a paper and take and show them physically it was there. So that's what you saw right there. So we'll get that straightened out and make them understand. So computers and humans working back and forth, it's not their fault. It was a misstep on my part. So just so for clarification, thank you.
Thank you, Majority Floor Leader, for the clarification. The computer will get you every time. Messages from the Senate.
Message 327. Mr. Speaker, the Senate did concur on House amendments to bill listed below by the vote indicated. Senate File 41. Ayes, or skill-based amusement games, authorized locations. Ayes 21, noes 10. Message 328. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 21, State Land Use of Land Qualification Requirements. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 29, conflict 2. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Senate File Message 329. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 79, voter ID, concealed carry permit. Ayes 31. Message 330. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 175, excused absence, state fair events. Ayes 28, noes 3. Message 332. Mr. Speaker, the Senate did concur on House amendments to the bill listed below by the vote indicated. Senate File 176, Solid Waste Disposal Districts Consolidation. Ayes 31. Message 341. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 65, 988, Suicide Prevention. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 19, noes 12. Message 337. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed state conferees to meet with Senate conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the House on amendments to House Bill 16. The Senate conferees are Senator Hicks, Chairman, Senator Barlow, Senator Steinmetz. Message 338. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the House on amendments to House Bill 104. The Senate conferees are Senator Boner, Chairman, Senator Case, Senator Schuler. Message 339. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the House on amendments to House Bill 9. The Senate conferees are Senator Nethercott, Chairman, Senator Kinski, Senator Landon. Message number 340. Mr. Speaker, the Senate appointed Senate conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the House on amendments to House Bill 14. The Senate conferees are Senator Case, Chairman, Senator Brennan, Senator Kolb. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
Reports from standing committees.
Senate File 32, sponsored by Judiciary, prohibiting drones over penal institutions, an act relating to crimes and offenses. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 32 engrossed, prohibiting drones over penal institutions, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Crago, Haroldson, Jennings, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Representative Washit, Chairman. Senate File 35, sponsored by Judiciary. School crosswalks and pedestrian crossings appropriation, an act relating to the administration of government. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 35 engrossed, school crosswalks and pedestrian crossings appropriation, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Crago, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Noes, Representative Haroldson and Jennings. Representative Washit, Chairman. Senate File 65, sponsored by Senator Baldwin. Compensation of local registrars, repeal, an act relating to vital records. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 65. Compensation of local registrars, repeal. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Clouston, Hornock, O'Hearn, Penn, Trujillo, Ward, Yin, Zwanitzer. Representative Zwanitzer, Chairman. Senate File 66, sponsored by Appropriations, School Capital Construction Funding, an act relating to school finance accounts. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 66, School Capital Construction Funding, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Henderson, Larson, Nicholas, Sherwood, Stith, Walters, Zwanitzer. Representative Nicholas, Chairman. Senate File 95, sponsored by Senator Ellis, Moon Landing Day, an act relating to legal time and holidays. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 95 engrossed, Moon Landing Day, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Burkhart, Conrad, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Tarver, Western. Representative Burkhart, Chairman. Senate File 116, sponsored by Senator Dockstader, Protection of Lawful Commerce in Firearms, an act relating to civil procedure. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 116 engrossed, Protection of Lawful Commerce in Firearms, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Burkhart, Conrad, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Tarver, Western. Representative Burkhart, Chairman. Senate File 129, sponsored by Senator Landon. Background checks, Governor's Office, an act relating to criminal history records. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 129 engrossed. Background checks, Governor's Office, respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Chestick, Crago, Haroldson, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez Williams, Washit. Noes. Representative Jennings. Representative Washit, Chairman. Senate File 131, sponsored by Senator Hutchings, prohibition on delivery of unsolicited ballot forms, an act relating to elections. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 131 engrossed, prohibition on delivery of unsolicited ballot forms, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Chadwick, Hornock, Penn, Trujillo, Ward, Zwanitzer. Noes. Representatives Clouston, O'Hearn, Yin. Representative Zwanitzer, Chairman. Senate File 148, sponsored by Senator Kinski, preemption of local firearms regulation, an act relating to weapons. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 148, preemption of local firearms regulation, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Henderson, Larson, Nicholas, Sherwood, Stith, Walters, Zwanitzer. Representative Nicholas, Chairman. Senate File 154, sponsored by Senator Cooper, Energy Authority Project Financing Refineries, an act relating to the Wyoming Energy Authority. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 154 engrossed, Energy Authority Project Financing Refineries, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Burkhart, Conrad, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Tarver, Western. Representative Burkhart, Chairman. Senate File 157, sponsored by Senator Cooper. Weed and Pest Mitigation, Tribal Inclusion 2, an act relating to weed and pest control. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 157 engrossed, Weed and Pest Mitigation, Tribal Inclusion 2, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Henderson, Larson, Nicholas, Sherwood, Stith, Walters, Zwanitzer. Representative Nicholas, Chairman.
We're at that order of business of signing of enrolled acts. The first enrolled act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act 20. The reading clerk will read the enrolled act.
House Enrolled Act 20 being original House Bill 18, an act relating to missing persons alert systems, amending duties for the Office of Homeland Security and Highway Patrol for emergency alert communication networks, amending state cooperation with federal, tribal, and local law enforcement for alert systems, providing a definition, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 20 being original House Bill number 18. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 21. The reading clerk will read the enrolled act.
House Enrolled Act 21 being original House Bill 20, an act relating to state lands, requiring notice and opportunity to comment before completing an exchange, specifying applicability and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act, House Enrolled Act number 21 being original House Bill 20. I have so signed. The next the next enrolled act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 22. The reading clerk will read the enrolled act.
House Enrolled Act 22 being original House Bill 61, an act relating to environmental quality, authorizing the governor to begin negotiations with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to seek an agreement for the state to assume regulation of source material recovered from any mineral resources processed primarily for the purpose other than obtaining the source material content, authorizing the governor to negotiate and enter into a final agreement with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, providing definitions, providing for the Department of Environmental Quality to administer the agreement, providing rulemaking authority, requiring the Department of Environmental Quality to adopt fees as specified, making conforming amendments, providing for an appropriation, authorizing positions, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 22 being original House Bill 61. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 23. The reading clerk will read the enrolled act.
House Enrolled Act number 23 being original House Bill 181, an act relating to gaming, requiring permitting and licensure for online sports wagering as specified, specifying fees, specifying persons subject to criminal background checks for online sports wagering, specifying limitations and procedures on revenue calculations for purposes of remitting online sports wagering revenue to the Gaming Commission, amending requirements for application, review for online sports wagering permits and licenses, making conforming amendments, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign House Enrolled Act number 23 being original House Bill number 181. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 24. The reading clerk will please read the enrolled act.
House Enrolled Act 24 being original House Bill 13, an act relating to children, clarifying the duties, powers, and authority of the Office of Guardian Ad Litem by amending references from the Guardian Ad Litem program to the Office of Guardian Ad Litem, specifying applicability and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 24 being original House Bill number 13. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 25. The reading clerk will read the enrolled act.
House Enrolled Act 25 being original House Bill 79, an act relating to elections, providing that a concealed carry permit is acceptable identification for purposes of in-person voter identification requirements, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign House Enrolled Act number 25 being original House Bill 79. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Crago. The next enrolled act for our consideration is House Enrolled Act number 26. The reading clerk will read the enrolled act.
House Enrolled Act 26 being original House Bill 175, An act relating to students' attendance, modifying the duties of local boards of trustees, modifying excused absences for the events associated with the state fair, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 26, being original House Bill 175. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Strock. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 23. The reading clerk will read the enrolled act.
Senate Enrolled Act 23 being original Senate File 78, an act relating to education, labor, and employment, requiring the Department of Workforce Services to provide information to secondary students in Wyoming on apprenticeship and on-the-job training programs, specifying duties of school boards of trustees, requiring of a report, requiring rulemaking, and providing for effective dates, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 23, being original Senate File number 78. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 24. The reading clerk will please read the enrolled act.
Senate Enrolled Act 24 being original Senate File 176. An act relating to counties, authorizing two or more existing solid waste disposal districts to consolidate, specifying procedures, terms, and conditions for the consolidation of solid waste disposal districts, making conforming amendments, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 24, being original Senate File number 176. I have so signed. The next enrolled act for our consideration is Senate Enrolled Act number 25. The reading clerk will please read the enrolled act.
Senate Enrolled Act 25 being original Senate File 41. An act relating to gaming, limiting where skill-based amusement games can be located, allowing previously authorized skill-based amusement games to continue operating as specified, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 25, being original Senate File number 41. I have so signed. Chief, does that clear the deck? Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House adjourn until 10 a.m. tomorrow, the 16th day of February, 2023.
Committee announcements. Chairman Washit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I heard Senate File 35 was read in, so I'm asked for a re-referral, Senate File 35 to Committee Number 2.
Chief, do we have that on our radar? Okay, Senate File 35. Without objection, Senate File 35 will be re-referred to Committee Number 2 Appropriations. Chairman Eklund.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 5 Agricultural meet at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we will do Senate File 137 engrossed and Senate File 107 engrossed.
Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your House Appropriations will meet at noon tomorrow. We'll continue with Senate File 97 and hopefully complete and finalize the Senate File 96 and re-referral of 35. And just for so folks know what else is left on our chart, Senate File 159 and 172 will be held on Tuesday on adjournment, and Senate File 142 will be held on Wednesday at noon.
Chairman Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 3, Revenue, will meet tomorrow morning, February 17th at 8 a.m. in East Room 3. 3 bills, Senate File 100, Designation of Spouses, Revocation upon Divorce or Annulment, SJ 2, Recognizing the Service of Lester Hunt, and Senate File 112, Peer Support Counseling Confidentiality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Vice Chair O'Hearn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 8 will meet tomorrow at noon recess to discuss Senate File 0053, Wyoming National Guard Medical Insurance Premiums, Senate Joint 0005, Air Force 75th Anniversary, and Senate File 0123, Military Dependent School of Choice at noon.
Just a second, Chief. So Representative Harrelson, on your JCC, have you done an announcement for that yet, for that JCC?
Mr.
Representative
Speaker,
Harrelson.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have contacted the other chair, and our plan is upon adjournment tomorrow down in W113.
All right, sounds good, thank you. Representative Obermuller.
A privilege, Mr.
Please.
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We will have a Republican House caucus meeting down in the old historic chamber on adjournment. Thank you.
Any other committee announcements? You have heard the majority floor leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. Oh, sorry. Representative Newsom, I didn't see your sign.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your House Committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, will meet tomorrow upon noon recess to discuss Senate File 128, Transfer of State Lands Exchange, and Senate File 92, Small Customer Electrical Generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, you have heard the majority floor leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. The House is adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow, February 16th, 2023.